welcome everybody to what is a purple flag first. So today we're talking about co-designing safe places. And this is the first time we've ever done this for Purple Flag. And that is to have a global conversation about best practice in terms of the management of an evening and nighttime economy. So for those new to Purple Flag is a growing international accreditation, and with that growth, certainly what we've realised in the UK where Purple Flag started and now with Ireland as well, is when you have a critical mass and you have more people engaged in the process of Purple Flag, involved in all aspects of managing a safer and better nighttime, you get more of this critical mass for sharing best practice, for troubleshooting common problems and working through them together. And if Purple Flag is growing globally, which it is, then we have to take the opportunity to try and speak as much as we can about the problems we share. Purple Flag has destinations in the UK, Ireland, Sweden, and in Australia and New Zealand. And who knows, very soon, we're hoping to add an additional country to that list. And I think one of the representatives actually is on the call now, which is great. So I can't say too much yet, but fingers crossed, everything will be good in terms of the accreditation. So what we're going to do, first time doing this Purple Flag International Forum, so we're going to play around with the format a little bit. We'll test this format today, see if it works, and we'll stick with it. And if not, we'll change things for the next meeting. So for today, the topic of conversation is going to be about the co-designing of safe spaces at night. Now, so much we focus on when it comes to people's welfare and well-being at night tends to usually be quite focused on what happens within late night venues. People who might be drinking, for example, the use of excessive alcohol, or are they safe from crime, etc., etc. For those of us with a responsibility and an interest for public safety in the round, in terms of the management of a whole destination, what happens outside is equally as important to us as what happens inside. And certainly, I think many of us will feel like there is a strong connection between the types of streetscapes we have at night and also levels of vulnerability as well. And it's that link that we want to explore today, not necessarily explicitly, but certainly in terms of how we develop a process for creating a safer place. And the reason is because we know that good design can support safety at night. The question is, what exactly does good design look like? What are the issues we need to consider? Things like lighting, things like wayfinding for those people who might be visiting a destination and don't know it well at night. Sight lines, being able to see other people approaching. Things like footfall. Is in a street that's particularly busy, or is it fairly quiet? All of these things can sort of play in to what constitutes a street that is or feels safe. But it's not that easy to determine exactly what those issues may be street by street, because you see, every street is different, and there might be a combination of issues which might differ from street to street depending on its physical makeup. What even do we mean by vulnerability? What type of people are we talking about when we refer to the vulnerable? And understanding what that vulnerability means might help us to understand what the issues are. And in this game as well, perception is nearly as important as the actual tangible impact on safety. So helping somebody to feel safe as well as actually being safe is critical. But obviously perception is more difficult to work with. It's difficult to find hard stats on exactly what is making people feel safe in comparison to some of the more tangible outcomes. And those perceptions can be shaped by very personal experiences. which creates all sorts of challenges when it comes to the actual design process if some of the people involved in that design process don't share those personal experiences. And so it brings us on to another challenge. Those responsible for creating safe places, can they actually understand those experiences? Are they people that are even designing some of these streetscapes, understanding how they may be used at night? Or does the nighttime not even necessarily feature in that decision-making process? So there's challenges there. May there be a disconnect sometimes between the planner and the actual user? And if there is, how do we bring the two together? And also the issue of the prioritization when it comes to design features, because streets are going to be multifunctional. They'll be used by a myriad of users for a myriad of purposes 24/7. We're talking about something quite specific in terms of safety at night. What about all the other things streets are used for, and how might that create difficulty in terms of creating the safe space we want at night? Despite these challenges, I think it's absolutely imperative that we try and get it right for nighttime destinations. It's really important for us to be able to have success in this area, because certainly in the UK and Ireland, we've had some really high profile incidents that make some parts of society concerned about using streets alone at night, and it can have an impact on the success or otherwise of our nighttime destinations. And certainly for women and girls, there is a huge problem in terms of perceptions of safety in public spaces at night. And it needs to be addressed for destinations that want to attract people after dark. So for today's conversation, that's going to be enough for me. From today's conversation, we are going to discuss how we can make safe spaces through co-design. How do we make that work? How can we do that properly? How do we bring the planners and designers of the world together with the experiences to provide some proper tangible insight on how we shape a better place? How do we get that balance right, given the multifunctional nature of streetscapes? And how do we make it the norm for those using public space at night are able to play that critical role in the design process? So what we're going to do is we're going to talk about some of the processes behind that co-design. And for that, I'm going to rely on the excellent Dr. Jo Morrison, who's going to come in and talk to us about a lot of the work she's been doing with her Association for Collaborative Design hat on. And then we're going to hear from the team from New South Wales about a specific piece of work which actually looks to bring people into the process. So can I start by bringing you in, Jo, if technology allows us?
Yes, let's hope so. Okay, I'm gonna share. Let's see. There we are. How's that?
First time,
We're
excellent.
good to go. Okay. Well, in fact, I'm going to use both my roles actually. So I am the or a co-founding director of the Association of Collaborative Design, as OJ said, and the ACD, we're a volunteer-led organization seeking to mainstream collaborative design across the built environment, to democratize design and to create better neighborhoods for all. My day job, if you like, and what I'm drawing upon here in part is with Calvium, and we're a digital innovation agency with a range of clients who are interested in using the strengths of technology and data to make the experience of places better. And when we're talking about places in general, it could be high street, transportation systems, healthcare estates, local public realm, and so forth. And thank you very much, OJ, for inviting me here today. It's simply super to be participating. So I will start with a brief scene setting before I talk about three projects, all of which involve public engagement in different ways. There we go. The first explores active travel after dusk. The second is all about health and well-being and in our town centres. And the third is a resource to support meaningful public engagement and co-design for the built environment. So let's get on with some scene setting. So engagement, and we could talk about all sorts of different terms, but we'll use engagement in the form of public participation is a broad concept and it spans various fields. Overall, it's about creating opportunities for people to connect and contribute to the decisions that affect their lives. Engagement should be inclusive and take an intersectional perspective, recognizing the diverse needs and experiences of different groups, just as OJ said. And these groups could include and should include women, children, vulnerable groups, marginalized groups, and so forth. And indeed, engagement comes in many forms. For example, public participation and co-design are achieved by combining face-to-face, analog, and digital engagement techniques. Our second scene setter is urban space. So wherever you are located today, wherever in the world, your towns and cities are dynamic urban spaces. They're multifaceted, they're interconnected and in flux. So they're forever evolving. They're not static. As this illustration highlights, so there's a wealth of factors that make up our streets and our city centres, such as pulling some out, utility infrastructure, housing, laws and regulation, people. They all make up the fabric of our places. And to select one factor, which isn't a surprise for me, it's digital technology. Whomever you are in this session, again, the places that you shape as place professionals and those that you visit will now be interwoven with technology. For instance, these digital platforms and apps and many, many others enable us to plan a trip, to find our way, order food, pay for services, locate people nearby, and so forth. And I'm sure you'll agree the ways in which our interconnected urban spaces are constructed, how they're experienced, how they're, as OJ said, how they're perceived, can have a real significant impact on people's lives, for good and for bad. And these places won't be experienced in the same way by all people. And they're different at different times of the day. Now, when we think of urban streetscapes, we imagine public spaces, commonly regarded as areas that are freely open to all people, which means that they're inclusive places, they're accessible places, equitable and fair for all individuals, except that they're not in practice. In reality, the ways that our streetscapes are often designed, they actively hinder the experience of various social groups, thereby reducing their full participation in society and local nighttime economies. And we're now living with the results of what has been well documented as the biased nature of city design, which is a problem that needs addressing. So that concludes our scene setting, where we've explored public engagement, we've explored the complexity of urban space within which we're all operating, and that the design of its streetscapes can limit participation. So on to 3 projects. The first project aims to support people to move around their towns and cities after dusk by walking, wheeling, and public transport. And it's research that I led for the City of Edinburgh Council in Scotland. We're focusing on parks and green spaces. We're not framing parks as destinations. We aren't seeking to increase dwell time after dark. Rather, we're framing them as places to travel through as part of a journey. And why is that? Well, the City of Edinburgh Council understands that people perceived safety as being in unlit parks. It decreases after dusk. And as the city's parks are often key connecting routes between destinations. This means that many potential active travel and public transport journeys are foregone due to people using other motorized transport to move around the city or not venturing forth at all. So by illuminating the most appropriate paths at nightfall, the city aims to enhance the perceived safety, that word again, of its parks and encourage their uses as sites of connection. And in that way, it's expected that more people will adopt active travel and public transport journeys, and the city will reap the associated health, economic, and environmental benefits. So just think how your own local economies could benefit from more people feeling confident to travel at night by adopting active travel. Do you have suitable parks and green spaces that could act as critical mobility infrastructure after dusk? Something we could talk about later. So we worked with the council to discover which of its 149 public parks of all shapes and sizes had formal unlit paths where the installation of sensitive lighting would provide additional benefit for residents. And we ranked those parks and recommended the ones to consider for lighting. And the report was used as evidence to unlock £500,000 worth of initial funding. Now, the next step will be for the council to further assess the top-ranked parks and green spaces. And this means having meaningful community engagement around each of those parks, not simply taking the recommendations and running with it. And that will be at the center of the activities to inform decision-making. Just a little bit more about the project. So as with all cities, there are a number of strategies, policies, and goals that underpin the operations of Edinburgh. And the key foundational texts that informed this project in its commission, its approach, and its analysis include the City of Edinburgh's Active Travel Plan, its 20-minute neighbourhood strategy, Scotland's Equally Safe strategy, and Goal 11 of the UN's SDGs that seek to make cities inclusive, safe, resilient, and sustainable. As such, the research pays special attention to the needs of those in vulnerable situations: women, children, disabled people, and older people. And how did we get to this result of recommended parks when the context of each park, like that of each street and streetscape, is hyperlocal? So as we know, urban parks are entangled within the social, the economic, and cultural and environmental fabric of a city. So in order to disentangle these multivariable aspects of Edinburgh's parks, I designed a bespoke framework which spoke to the strategies and concepts and policies that I mentioned earlier on. And it identified 5 critical place dimensions, which you can see here, including the Scottish Index of Multiple Deprivation. Perceptions is another of the dimensions, and that is a place where we collated subjective information from people who have experienced the parks and reflected upon specific characteristics, either as individual responses or as part of an overall assessment. So we gathered a mix of the qualitative and quantitative data in the framework, which I assessed and submitted the report, as I mentioned, and that released the initial 5 million, 0.5 million, 0.5 million. So a couple of takeaways for you. Place-based data. Draw upon existing data sets to understand your places better and to help inform decision-making. So ensure that you use credible sources and that the reliable sets are universal for your place, and ensure that you seek and use knowledge from a variety of voices with lived experience of your location. Make sure that you have a representative cohort of your area, and don't rely solely on abstract data or existing sets of place assumptions. And secondly, public engagement and co-design. as I mentioned, Edinburgh plans to conduct individual engagement activities for the first 10 parks earmarked for funding. So adopt and foster a more inclusive, participatory, and collaborative approach to design and decision making. Okay, we're now going to whip on to the next one, which is changing our focus from mobility to health and well-being. And here I'm highlighting the digital placemaking for health and well-being research that I led for the NHS, the National Health Service in Northeast London. For those of you who don't know London, the NHS Northeast London covers a large area that's made up of 8 of London's boroughs. Its population is projected to grow significantly over the coming years, with Barking and Dagenham, Tower Hamlets, and Newham as 3 of the fastest growing boroughs in the UK. And this project explored how innovative place-based digital technologies can help the health and well-being of Northeast London's diverse communities. And in particular, it sought to reveal how digital placemaking can be incorporated into the strategic planning of future healthcare facilities, as well as, critically for today's event, the neighbouring public realm, be they residential areas, high streets, and town centres. Before summarizing what we did in terms of co-design and our approach, a bit about digital placemaking. We're focusing on location-specific digital technology and working at the intersection of people, place, technology, and data. Because, as discussed earlier, digital tech as products and services are part of the fabric of our towns and cities. So we opted to find out. We weren't building anything. That's important to say. We didn't come in with any assumptions. We weren't coming in with any technology or services to build. We wanted to find out whether there was interest in our mission from the primary stakeholder communities. And in terms of our stakeholder mapping, they were local residents, patients, carers, NHS staff, and local authority staff. And then secondly, if there was interest, what shape it took, where that interest lay. And importantly, we were doing so in a transparent and in an open manner, in a way that shared and explored insights as we went along. We had a 3-stage project structure. So as you can see here, in stage 1, we sought to get a sense of the environment. So we undertook a literature survey. We conducted interviews with people from local authorities and the NHS within a range of different job roles. An online survey of over 1,000 residents was carried out. And we undertook observations of 4 sites. And that information was gathered and analysed and helped to inform stage 2, which was all about stakeholder community engagement. Now, I'm not going to go through each of the 7 activities for time's sake, but what I will do is say that we designed those activities to suit as many people as possible. We aimed to be inclusive. One hears of unheard voices or the hard to reach. Well, that's probably because you're not looking in the right places, or we're not looking in the right places. So here are a few images that give a flavor of the activities. This is an informal and playful drop-in. We also had more of, familiar structured group sessions, as you can see here, both in person and online, to facilitate those who couldn't make it to one or the other, or had a preference to be in different types of activity. We also had one-to-one video calls for those people who don't feel comfortable within group settings of any kind. We had multidisciplinary creative co-design sessions, and we even had an experimental tweetathon. I'll go into that later if you like. And there's so much rich and powerful information that has been revealed from this project because of its multi-stakeholder collaborative ethos. A couple of things here. We're about street closures. Even if you want to get an Uber for mobility, you can't, and go into that. Even with a disabled pass, and it was impacted without consultation. Another quote here, I haven't been out by myself for years. I would like to be able to push myself around the block, but I am in a wheelchair and visually impaired. The trees are pretty, but the tree roots lift the pavement and people leave bins out, and I could go on. So the experience design framework is a key output of this scoping project. It is a practical resource that you can use, I'd love you to. And it's intended to be used as a springboard for stakeholder communities to explore how digital technologies can support health and well-being locally. The golden circle that you see there holds the framework's cultural approach. And as you can see, inclusion, care, diversity, communities, co-design, ethics, stewardship. And the blue band holds the themes for inquiry, in which we have transport and mobility, net zero, comfort and safety, and so forth. And it was a key output of the research and was developed and tested during the project. So how might you use this experience design framework to support engagement and co-design wherever you are in your own town centres and after dark? Well, OJ gave a powerful presentation a few years ago, which you may well have seen, and it was about the impacts that we are seeing in our town and cities as a result of human-induced climate change. So let's build on that quickly. As it is a critical dimension of place that you will already probably be factoring into the design, but you will need to be factoring into the design and shaping of your town centres now and in the near future. And that means you 100% need to understand how people are being and will be impacted on an individual and social group level by climate change. So look for your place-based data. We discussed that earlier on. And I've just very quickly pulled together some stats here more globally as opposed to UK-based, but more nationally, as opposed to hyperlocal. So 55% of UK housing stock would fail assessments for nighttime overheating in bedrooms. Urban areas are prone to overheating, with 83% of the population in England experiencing that and 85% in Scotland. 21% of households in London do not have access to private or shared gardens. And at the same time, we know that people often feel compelled to avoid public areas at night for fear of mistreatment or lack of amenities or services that are tailored to their fundamental needs. So here we're talking about toilets, seating, shelter, ease of access, transport connections, digital connections, and so forth, all of which hinder access to public spaces, to high streets, and to full participation in society. So if you bring these together, you've now got a hunch to test with the experience design framework. So your hunch might be, how might we enable our high streets to become vibrant hubs of well-being for our communities, residents, businesses, visitors, after dusk, given that their own homes are becoming increasingly too hot at night? Something I think we all should be thinking about, particularly as we're building increasing, well, certainly in the UK, residential properties within cities and town centres. And that leads me on to my final project, which is the engagement overlay to the RIBA plan of work. And that was launched by RIBA, the Royal Institute of British Architects, a few months ago. RIBA's plan of work, for those of you who don't know, organizes the process of briefing, of designing, of constructing, and of operating building projects into 8 stages, and explains the stage outcomes, the core tasks, and information exchanges required at each stage. Now, they publish separate overlays to provide detailed guidance on specific design and built environment considerations that can be implemented through each RIBA plan of work stage. And that's where the overlay comes in, the engagement overlay comes in. So the ACD, Association of Collaborative Design, remember us, and Sustrans, which is an active travel charity, we led the research and we co-authored the engagement overlay. And its main objective is to provide a standardized approach and baseline for architects who may be on this call and other built environment professionals who are definitely on this call, such as yourselves, to enhance the quality of engagement with all stakeholders and to create capacity for public participation beyond the traditional methods of solely informing and consulting. And it provides the mechanisms and structure for facilitating early, effective, and proportionate engagement throughout all work stages. It's freely available, and I recommend that you download it and adopt it or adapt it for your own benefits. And you can see how happy Sarah and I were on the day of its launch there. So at this point, I'd like you to commit to adopting meaningful public engagement and co-design practices to support all people's experiences of urban spaces after dark. And I'd like to say thank you very much, and back to OJ.
Joe, that's brilliant. So much information. I've made so many notes. I've got lots of questions. I think I'm maybe just going to ask one before we go over to Victoria, and then we're going to open it up so everybody can chip in with questions, comments, roundtable discussions, and also to tell us what's happening in your areas. So very quickly, so many questions. Right, your experience design framework looks great. It feels to me like if you are vested in a neighborhood, it's a great framework for allowing people to give you their experiences. Like I say, those personal experiences are really important. In the context of the nighttime economy, there might be a lot of people visiting a nighttime destination for leisure reasons that aren't necessarily as invested in that neighborhood in the same way because they're a visitor, and they might not necessarily know the area that well. How do you think the experience design framework can get as much out of that type of stakeholder as someone who is fully invested in a neighborhood which they might have lived for the past 10 years and know it inside out?
Yeah.
Is it flexible enough to use for
Oh
someone
God, yeah,
who
yeah,
might
no,
have lived it
absolutely.
for?
And it was designed to be just that. And designed for people in lot who are very time poor as well. So you might be vested, but you've only got 5 minutes to participate. So it's that is a framework. What you're talking about, which to use as that springboard, what you're talking about there, OJ, is the actual the doing of. So you've got the framework, but then it's the methodology. So it's your approach and methodologies, and there it's around understanding who are those who doing your stakeholder mapping, stakeholder community mapping, whatever the terms are. We've got in the Reba plan of work got a massive glossary, which is really helpful to help to disentangle all the terminology, which often overlaps and butts up with each other and so forth. But certainly, yeah, the framework in and of itself is just that. So it helps you to find a way. It's a starting point, it's a springboard, but it's all to do with your methodology, your approach and your methodology when you are working with people who may not be as invested, but everybody's invested in their safety. Everybody wants to, if you're going to a place, if you're choosing to go to a place, you want to find out what is it like? How do I get around? What are the opportunities that are there for me? So you can be more abstract if you like, you can be more creative in the types of questions you're doing, but it's all around getting the content right, understanding what questions you're asking your particular groups. You aren't necessarily going to come in with a survey. You're like I was showing the and I'll shut up. She's got so much more I know. And we'll go over to Victoria as well. We tried experimental tweetathons. We tried that the one in particular that I'm thinking of to aim for a very particular social group and create content for them that we felt they would be interested in, to do it at a time where they might have some time, doing it online, and thinking about people just coming in and out for 5 minutes. So yes, the answer is yes. The framework is there for you to use, for anyone to use. To use it successfully, as with anything, you need to understand what your approach and your methods are to conducting the co-design and the public engagement activities.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you for that. And that tweetathons was something I've actually noted down, so we might speak about that later. And I think one of the things your presentation, the part of the presentation relating to the NHS reminds me of is the understanding that when we talk about the nighttime economy, we're not just talking about people going out for drinks. We're talking about a broad range of activity that just happens to happen after dark. And in terms of keeping people safe in the engagement of that economy, we might not just be talking about keeping people safe as they get to and from a nightclub or a bar, but it could be about people working in the health sector, or patients and visitors going to a hospital, or people working in offices, people working in the transport sector, etc., who might happen to be working at night. And so there
Absolutely.
is a broad group of people we are looking after when it comes to safety after dark, and that you reminded me of that, so I'm really glad you did. That was excellent. I think we've got Jodie as well now. So Victoria and Jodie, can I bring you in and we can hear about exactly some of this work taking shape in New South Wales?
Thanks, OJ. And I'm going to be actually presenting with Ashley today, who's also on the call. I think, yeah, it was really good to bring our partners within New South Wales government that we're delivering that initiative with. So hello, everyone, and thanks for having us. Let me share my screen so that you can see the presentation. And let me know if you can see that in presentation mode.
Perfect.
Yeah, amazing. I can't wait for the conversation after our presentation and find out who else is here today. But I'm Victoria Moxie. I'm the Director of Programs at the Office of the 24-Hour Economy Commissioner, which is part of New South Wales Government. And I'm going to be presenting with Ashley Hunter, who's the Director of Place and Public Life, Cities, Revitalisation and Place, which is part of Transport for New South Wales, which is also part of New South Wales Government. Is that changing for you?
No, it's not changed yet. Oh, there you go.
Great. I think there's a little bit of a lag, but I wanted to give you a little bit of context of who we are, actually, before we get into the actual initiative. But many of you might know, we are piloting Purple Flag in New South Wales, which is one of the states in Australia. The Office of the 24-Hour Economy Commissioner actually started 3 years ago, and we're here to deliver on Sydney's 24-hour economy strategy. And that citywide nighttime hub certification program was identified as an action within the strategy. Through research, we identified Purple Flag as global best practice, and we have franchised the program from ATCM. And we are really excited about being able to join more than 90 Purple Flag accredited areas across the world. And as you can see on the right, we've got 4 different locations where we are piloting the Purple Flag program. We chose 4 locations that are very different to each other as nighttime precincts, and they're offering from a multicultural perspective to the dining and drinking not being part of the offering, like in Lakemba, for example, which is mainly a multicultural space that's open until 4 o'clock in the morning, mainly with retail and hospitality. And hopefully the lagging won't be too bad from Australia to the UK. And just very quickly, key stakeholders, we've been working with local councils to identify those locations where we decided to run those pilot programs for Purple Flag. And within government, we work with a lot of other agencies that are very important in the management of nighttime precincts, including police and transport and hospitality, liquor and gaming for us here in New South Wales, as well as health. There's an accreditation panel that's made up of industry representatives, and it's also supported by ATCM in the UK. Now, where we're at with our pilot program, we have accredited 3 different precincts within New South Wales, and we're waiting for a 4th one that's going through the assessment program right now. And we've just started our evaluation period for the pilot program, which will finalize in June this year, and we are very excited to find to get that report from the consultant who's doing the evaluation for us, including recommendations of how we will roll out this program for the rest of New South Wales. So hopefully we'll continue adding Purple Flag precincts across Australia. And you might have met Michael Rodriguez, who's our 24-hour Economic Commissioner. He was in Manchester. I think he joined OJ in a forum discussion while he was in the UK. He's actually driving the Office of the 24-hour Economic Commissioner, and we are the ones leading on the Purple Flag program. What we've done is actually partner with the Safer Cities team within Transport for New South Wales, who have been doing a lot of work and are really the experts in that Safer Cities initiatives, working with cities and towns, and public spaces, particularly from the focus of women, girls, and gender diverse people, making sure that places are safe. And Ashley and her team actually lead on these Safer Cities programs. So Ashley, if you'd like to take on from here for a little bit of an introduction of Safer Cities.
Thank you so much, Victoria, and thank you so much for having me and us here today. Just making sure you can hear me. Yeah, good, because I was having tech problems getting in. So yes, thanks, Victoria. I'm Ashley Hunter. I'm the Acting Director of Place and Public Life in Transport for New South Wales. We are actually sitting in the cities and active transport area, so less on the modes in terms of trains and buses and things, but we are all about that first and last mile, walkability and vibrancy, and how to make our cities and towns in the state of New South Wales more walkable and lovable, I guess. So the Safer Cities program is one of the programs in our team. It's a $30 million program over 2 years, focused on improving perceptions of safety in our cities and towns, particularly for women, girls, and gender diverse people. I guess we know that if the city is safe for women, it's safer for everybody, or our more vulnerable members of the community. So our program aims, it is a lot of money, $30 million. I don't know what that is in pounds, half it probably, but it's a lot of money, a really big global problem, and a short amount of time. So we looked internationally to align our program, and we aligned it to the United Nations Safer Cities for Girls program. We've had lots of fantastic conversations with the UN Habitat about their program and lessons that we could, really learn from to build this. So the 3 key aims is to increase women and girls' safety and access to public spaces, streets and open space, increase women and girls' active and meaningful participation in urban development and governance. And I really enjoyed your presentation, Jo, about that depth of co-design and really, that deep engagement. Our final point is to increase women and girls' autonomous mobility in the city. The entire program is really based on co-design. I think as governments, we have a tendency to sort of, get our programs ready and then go to the community with them. This one, we really reached out to all of our partners in the first instance, partnered up and said, we really want you to design what you're going to do with your community, with the women, girls, and gender diverse people, so that we really challenge our, I guess, the status quo or our unconscious biases of things that we think might work. So we've partnered with 10 councils, which is like a local government. I'm not sure what the equivalent is, but 10 local governments, councils across the state. So we gave them each $1 million and asked them to co-design solutions of what women think would make them feel safer. So ours is about perceptions of safety. It's that really early intervention through the design of our cities, as well as cultural change. We've also partnered with about 10 local government agencies. So Victoria and the Team 24 is one of them, but also with health districts. We just ran a 24-hour tea room and performance inside a health district so that we could engage with the women and the workforce. We found out that 80% of that workforce, frontline workforce, are women working around the clock. So really critical to make sure that their experiences getting from work and home, vice versa, is safe and enjoyable. We've also partnered with the transport modes, so looking at train station upgrades and really working out how to, improve those from a perceptions of safety experience, as well as smart technology, really working out those data sets, as well as other interventions that we know can help make people feel safer, as well as a public education campaign. Obviously, we really need to talk at the heart of some of the issues of what women might be feeling afraid of in those spaces. And then a lot of research, evaluation, and the toolkit, which I think will be of most interest, to you internationally, which I'll get to in a minute. Look, I won't spend too much time on the case for change, but when we were designing the program, we really did a lot of research, looked internationally, did a lot of workshops and things to understand what the issue is. One thing from a transport perspective that's quite interesting is that we know women's travel patterns differ hugely to men's. So they make more complex, more shorter trips at varied times. They use public transport and walk more than men. They chain trips, doing lots of little having multiple purposes and destinations for one trip. So we know that women, we could go to the next slide, Victoria. We know that women's, experiences, travel patterns, and the way that they use our cities is different to men's. I'm being very generalist, but then we did a whole lot of sort of just high level surveys. And this, I guess, this isn't a unique thing to New South Wales. I would say New South Wales in Australia is a very safe, it feels, it's a beautiful, safe city. Obviously there's crime and certain things that happen, but in general, the crime statistics don't match this. So you might have a smaller crime statistic, yet 9 out of 10 women agree that feeling safe influences how they move around. They say 59% of women feel unsafe in New South Wales during the night. So it's twice as likely than men. So we really knew there was an opportunity to do a hell of a lot more. We know that 3 in 4 women would walk more if they felt safer in public spaces. And I know that would extend to going out and nighttime. The mental load that women carry, there is a constant vigilance and sort of this hyper awareness that they have as they move through public spaces. We hear all of, and throughout the entire program, women will always be just nodding when we talk about, you carry your keys in your hand, you ring your friend, you will catch a taxi after dark instead of use public transport. And that's a really limiting thing, because we know that when you go out and then you can get the train there, but then on your way home, you'll catch a taxi. We want to make sure that people feel safe in the cities to have that more equitable experience of moving around. Always women, for most women, choosing a safe route is always more important than a convenient one, even if it is at a cost financially. Next slide. So through all of our work, it through all of the engagement that we have done. So we start by doing we're doing a lot of things called night walks, and I guess this, if I could give you a very quick snapshot of what we've heard from that, just kind of comes out unanimously of what actually helps make women and girls and gender diverse people feel safer in these spaces. And it comes down to these kind of key buckets that just come up time and again. So lighting and visibility, but it's not about brighter isn't always better. It's about that atmosphere, that sort of more creative lighting, warmer lights instead of white lights. We all know that when you see fairy lights in a public space, you have a sense that just it's being cared for. There's something kind of more beautiful about it. Women respond to that. A well cared for space is really important. That maintenance, that that it doesn't feel, that can impact that feeling. Wayfinding and signage is really critical. Sight lines is really important. Ways to exit and be able to see what's coming. Colour and public art, and I love that this comes up time and time again, that the community love seeing public art, they love seeing colour, they love seeing themselves or themes through the public art that reflects them as well. Active surveillance. So I think historically we often turn to policing and CCTV cameras as our safety kind of measures, yet we know women are not a homogenous group, so we know that some people don't feel safe having CCTV footage or the response to the police, but we do know that time and time again, if there are lots of people around and people that are like you in a place, you will feel safer. And so it's that eyes on the streets. Activation in public spaces is also critical. Partly, sometimes some of our programs are doing events. A lot of the things that we know is that if you've had a bad experience in a place, you won't go back there. So it's about kind of retraining those memories and creating new experiences in those spaces. Next slide. This is the bit that I would really encourage you to have a look at. We've just launched these 5 resources, and this has been built and gathered and refined through our program. Our program is coming to an end in the next 6 months, with all of the projects happening, starting to roll out on the ground. And I would love to come back maybe in 6 months' time and show you some of those examples. But these would be things that I think you could all, have a little look at. One is co-designing spaces together, so a co-design guide to step you through those processes. There's the New South Wales Guide to Gender Inclusive Placemaking. We have a case studies document that has great best practice examples from across the world and Australia about ways that placemaking can really improve perceptions of safety. But the 2 that are really usable is our New South Wales Guide to Evaluation Guide to Quality Public Spaces. And that will really help you as anybody that is a place manager to really evaluate your public space. But then there is a survey on perceptions of safety that you can do with the community and gather that other more nuanced data around perceptions. Our email address is there if you'd like to reach out. But and this is where I'll throw back to you, Victoria. I've been involved for about a year now on the Purple Flag accreditation process. I've really valued that the program and my involvement in it, because I see so much opportunity for it to expand with this gendered lens and that perception of safety to really help inform. And so we went to Victoria and we said, I think there's an opportunity for us to partner. And now over to you to let everybody know on the project you're leading.
Thanks, Ashley. And that's right. That's how we started working very closely together, because government sometimes can be very siloed. And the fact that, Ash, you were in the accreditation panel and you brought all this breadth of expertise through all of the work that you were doing, led us to just think, how can we incorporate all of that great learning into the Purple Flag program? So now, we're going into the initiative. So this is such an exciting initiative, not only for us, but for our Purple Flag working groups. So the whole aim, and we went to them to see if they wanted that. And they said absolutely, which was really exciting for us. But the aim is very much improving perceptions of safety for women and gender diverse people. We left girls behind because this was all about that nighttime precinct and nighttime experience in these particular locations that were based more in small bars and restaurants. So we did focus on women and gender diverse people within 2 of our Purple Flag precincts. And it is about understanding how do we make the nighttime more inclusive, and how do we ensure that there's more women actively participating of our nighttime. Why, I think Ashley already explained quite well, and how, you know, this particular initiative that we're doing is very much based on that co-creation. So it's about taking women and gender diverse people throughout the precinct, using the tools that Ash's team has developed, which were really useful for us, especially that the community survey on public spaces and perceptions of safety, and then delivering co-creation workshops to workshop all of those ideas that come from the walking tours, or as we call them, the workshops, and then come up with recommendations that the Purple Flag Working Group can put into practice. Just a very quick overview. So we've identified 2 locations out of our 3 Purple Flag precincts, and that's because the third one, Ash and her team were already working on a very similar initiative. So these are YCK, which is a particular area in Sydney, the CBD of Sydney. That is a quite tight location with more than 20 small bars in laneways and 3 main streets. Really interesting to explore, but at the same time, a lot of issues with wayfinding and lighting. So a very interesting precinct to look at. And then Parramatta CBD, which is the second biggest city, and very much a mixed use, cafes, restaurants, entertainment, theatre, also good mobility, but that's been the second Purple Flag accredited area. Of course, you know, through the Purple Flag accreditation, each precinct already knows what the challenges they have that they are actually working towards improving. For YCK, it's very much lighting and that intricate laneway system, and what happens or doesn't happen within those laneways, as well as wayfinding and signage. And for Parramatta, it's really changing that perception of the area. Is an area that is changing really fast. And that perception of safety is actually something that actually needs a lot more communication as to what is the reality of it right now. Same issues around wayfinding and signage. Very quick, this one is just very quick overview of the type of materials that we've used to encourage people to participate of our workshops and co-creation design workshops. We use posters, we incentivized participants with gift cards, and we use social media to make sure that we attracted people from all ages and backgrounds. And I'm not going to show that one right now, just because I know that we are limited in time, but there's some good examples of that promotional material if you want us to share with you later. And what does it look like? What we're doing is 2 workshops per precinct. There's one community workshop, which is very much that diversity of women and gender diverse people that we invite to come with us, approximately 30, and they're broken up into different groups. And they walk around with 4 specific locations that are identified with the working group, with the Purple Flag Working Group, as locations within the precinct that really need some improvement. And then there's a Purple Flag stakeholder workshop, very similar workshop, but with the actual working group to go through the precinct and actually look at the precinct from that same lens. And through that stakeholder workshop, we also share some of the insights from the community. Luckily, we've just ran our first workshop in YCK last Tuesday, and that went really, really well. So it was very exciting to see this initiative in action. These are some photos from just 2 days ago of our groups going around the YCK district. And that's followed by co-design sessions. These are co-design workshops where we invite both all of the women and gender diverse people that went through from the community side with the Purple Flag stakeholders to come together to discuss their insights and findings and develop ideas of what could make the precinct better. And that then ends up on almost like a report, a place-based recommendations report that then we share with the Purple Flag precinct, but also with a really good element to use for advocating to local council for potential investment in their areas as well. And that's it from us.
It's amazing. That's great. That's really exciting. It'll be really interesting to see some of the recommendations that come back from the workshops. And actually, I'd be delighted if you were able to share it with us, because certainly for our network across the UK and Ireland, and I'm sure our friends in Sweden would be really interested in seeing the outcome of that as well. I think that would be great. I'm really interested to see that, both in terms of the first presentation and the second one, how much technology plays a role in terms of
Yeah.
supporting and facilitating a lot of this activity, because I would assume, yeah, workshops, great practical thing to do, bring people along, take them out, to understand that technology can be used for the collection of data, for reaching out to a broader audience, for the tweetathons as well, Joe. I think that's really interesting. I think my first question, Joe, is how does a tweetathon work? And also, before I bring Joe in for that, for everybody else, questions and comments, feel free to start putting them in the chat box, and I will happily bring you in.
Okay, a quick one on a tweet. Also in chat, I really enjoyed that presentation. Spoke very much to my heart and my mind. So thank you very much for that. And if we can, on the ACD website, if we can, I've got the QR code, but if you give us permission to share the resources, I'd love to do that. In terms of a tweetathon is an it was experimental. And so what that is we wouldn't be doing it now. This was a year ago, before Elon Musk. But using Twitter as the place to come, we created a kind of a set of questions, and we had different resources and so on and so forth. That it was a creative space, basically, where people were given information. And that was one of the questions I was going to pick up myself with Victoria. We were giving information about a place, and at the same time, in fun ways, seeking information as well. So it wasn't just an extractive kind of interaction. It was very much engagement. And so that was really it. We had it was time limited. We promoted it. It was at a specific point, and it was a kind of a pile in, but it was also very kind of curated as well, in terms of the structure and the resources that we created, so that there was a sense of care around the activity, as I believe there should be, and as the workshop show, just there's a sense of care about what is being undertaken or offered.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. And for Ashley and Victoria, were you able to get a really good sort of a representative, a diverse group together for that first workshop? Did it really work well in terms of being able to bring people together of different experiences for the workshop?
You know, Jay, first, before I answer, I just want to say how exciting to have so many of these tools and resources available. Like Joe, you know, the framework that is available for everyone for free. You know, the tools and resources that are available through us. You know, there's so much going on in this space, and there's so much available to share with people, and that's so exciting. You know, it makes me really happy to see, you know, how much we can use that has already been developed by others. But on that, OJ, I was amazed at how much people care for place and how engaged everybody was to put their hands up to be part of this initiative, even before they knew about, you know, having a gift for food, you know, at the end of the workshop. But it was not hard at all. I thought it was going to take a lot more time and effort, you know, to get engaged people and a diverse representation. But we had a lot more people than we needed, so we were able to make sure that, you know, we invited a really good representation across age and yeah, backgrounds and everything else that we were looking for. Ash, I don't know if you've done so many of these workshops. I'd love to hear your experience as well, because yeah, you've done plenty.
We've done a lot over the last 2 years, and I mean, how you get the participants has varied between, you know, going to a really targeted, like inviting a really targeted mix of ages, backgrounds, and all sorts of things, to being, you know, putting the word out. The one thing that I would say is the most valuable, I think, you know, the insights in the report and all of that is really fantastic. But the best thing that seems to come out of these workshops is when you have community that have only the interest to be there to help share their experience unagendered. And then you have all of your stakeholders, your decision makers, the people that can actually cause change or influence change together. That is the most magic moment, is because you give power and space for the community, but you are there with the people that can do it. And for me, it's that space that you create to make sure everybody is listening. I love your reference, Joe, to care. I think care is a really important thing. And I think as governments, we, you know, building that into the design and delivery of all of our programs, and that care for the community. My favorite thing is the amount of workshop participants that have come back to us and said, oh, I've never felt as heard, or I've never felt like I've had an opportunity to actually cause change in this sort of engagement. So it certainly is an empowering process, and only for the better outcome, I think.
That sounds great.
Could I just wanted to say, I think it works, and I totally agree, Ashley, with what you're saying. I think it works both ways, because you also get, so as well as decision makers or local businesses and so forth sharing their needs and their experiences, and community doing so. Often the local communities, in terms of residential communities, so those living there, don't necessarily appreciate the kind of the demands and pressures of local business. And think that they, and I've experienced this a number of times, and think that they know their place, and you know, and it's a kind of a static knowledge of their place. And when you start to explain why that might be a cafe, and the meanwhile use, and the this and the that and the other, and what they're trying to achieve, then a light goes on. And as with all of us, you know, the more that you know about your neighbors, the more understanding and kind of appreciative you are. And also, I think that the other thing it does is it shows people what the structure is, and in terms of kind of more place change, in terms of the planning and the regulations and so forth. So I think that's really useful as well. That's that expansion of horizons all round.
I think it comes down to the basic thing of, you know, listening to each other and understanding other people's, you know, needs and point of view. So
yeah, it's a really, really good point. Really good
And
point.
it's one that businesses have such a hard time communicating with residents, right? And knowing how to engage with them. So that gives them just such a safe environment. You know, noise complaints, we know, is one of the big issues with businesses, and many times because maybe residents don't know much about the businesses that are running on their high street. So I completely agree, Joe. There's so much benefit by bringing those pieces together.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I'm going to bring my sort of two bosses in over here because both have asked actually quite similar questions, and I do think they're important. Before I do that, though, for those who are UK based, 6th of September, the town of Altrincham in Greater Manchester has invited me to a workshop on the day. So I think what I'm going to do is for all the other purple flag destinations in Greater Manchester, they're going to get a personal invite from me to join us and to visit Altrincham and to go through the workshop. And I want Altrincham might hate me for this, but I want to open it up as well because it'd be great for other people with an experience of managing an evening and nighttime destination to go through that process in a purple flag destination that is doing this live as we speak. I think it will be a great experience for all of us. Can I
OJ,
start?
OJ,
Yep.
OJ, please don't exclude the Aussies here. It's called a junket if you're not on it, and otherwise it's a study tour.
I tell you what, if we could, I would be more than happy to welcome you over. And we won't just limit it to Altrincham as well. I'll show you some of the other delights of Greater Manchester, where we've got a big cluster of purple flag locations now. So yeah, fabulous area.
And Audrey, I think we have Eileen from City of Parramatta, which is one of our purple flag precincts. Hi, Eileen. I just realized that you were here. We're going to be doing, actually, there's a workshop happening with the community tonight in the Parramatta CBD precinct. Great to have you, Eileen.
Oh, fantastic. That sounds great. That sounds great. I'm jealous. I wish I could join you. I will certainly try to in August. Lisa, can I bring you in? And also, I guess we'd better introduce who you are properly as well, so everybody in the southern hemisphere can get to know who you are.
Yeah, well, firstly, John, I love that you're having a glass of wine and I'm having coffee, and I'm looking at my watch, wondering when I can switch. Brilliant. So I'm Lisa Carlson. I'm the chair of the ATCM board. I also am chief exec of a business improvement district in Canterbury, which is in the southeast of England, and we've had Purple Flag here for 12 years in a row. So really, I'm pleased about that. But we've well, the first thing I want to say is Joe, Victoria, and Ashley, thank you, like huge thank you. And I've heard little bits of this before, so that I've been able to recently mention to our higher and further education strategic group that we want to implement workshops as part of the Purple Flag process here. And like it and people around the virtual room just sort of lit up. It kind of resonated with them right away. I think you've touched on it, but my question is, and I really think this is probably, I'm answering my own question in the sense that the answer is very local and specific to who your stakeholders are. But surely there's got to be a bit of one-to-one engagement on the community side ahead of doing workshops and co-design. Or maybe my Canterbury is a small city and can be, quite parochial. But I think you've touched on some of the key challenges, which they're going to be misperceptions. There's going to be the noise issue. There's going to be a kind of wall of, late night economy bad. And just, I guess, a little bit more about the preparation for that before you did your first ever workshop.
And yeah, Ash, I'll let you start, and then I'll speak specifically about this one that we've done. But yeah, you can start with the many you've done.
No, I'm happy for you to start, Victoria. I'll jump in at the end if I feel like that we.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. Lisa, really good question. In this particular case, the workshops that we've decided to do, we're really not focused on residents. It's more visitors and residents, if they were interested. So it was all about the journey through the precinct, not going into venues. So it was really what does that public space and experience of walking through the precinct feel like for women and gender diverse people. A lot of the posters, for example, were featured in the venues of the precinct to touch on anyone that was coming to the precinct already. But then we use social media a little bit more widely around City of Sydney for the YCK precinct and Parramatta for our other precinct to identify people that come to this precinct not that often or often, and that are interested in that space. So it was a mix. It was not all resident focused, if that makes sense. It was visitors and residents. And on the other point of the friction, I think there was something around there. It's interesting because just by working with this working group of businesses that have gone through Purple Flag, at this stage, after accreditation, they're so committed to improvement that it's a very different group from when they started. It's a group that understands why they need to really care about the experience of place. So I'm imagining there would have been a lot more friction before they went through the whole Purple Flag accreditation, rather than now, where they are and who is part of this working group and who, and their objectives for that precinct management. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, I'd add to that, Victoria. I guess you're not taking a whole lot of people together to ask about all their issues with a place. You're going to say, we understand that the way you feel in this place impacts your experience of this place. How do you feel? And so it starts in quite a disarming way, in the sense that you're heard, we appreciate your voice and your experiences. Tell us, what would make it feel better here. Yes, they point out things that don't feel right and are creepy and bad vibes and whatever, but they also are there to offer solutions, and it's at the start of a problem. It's at the start of a journey, and with a kind of intention to do more. So I think in terms of the frictions, it's not about the noise complaints and the things and that. In terms of a Purple Flag, it's about how you're feeling and how we can make it better. So I think it's quite a positive, scene setting. If that helps, does that?
Yeah, it does. It does. It's very focused, and I do think it's better in than out. And people need to be heard. It's better to have more people around the table than not. So no, I'm really excited about this. And similarly with Joe and the kind of engagement overlay you talked about, a lot of just principles. Now, the interesting thing, though, with the business improvement district, in most cases, is that we don't have statutory responsibility for public realm. So you have to be careful how, I think I'd need to be careful in terms of how I frame the conversation, because you don't want to enter something like this over promising, because people are inevitably going to comment on things that we can't deliver on. But there are still ways and means, I think. I think it's a really, really great suggestions.
Yeah,
and that's why it's good to have. Oh.
So I was just going to say also in the with the overlay, the engagement overlay, you can there's an awful, it's an easy read, but it's quite dense. So there's a lot of information that can support you, and then there's a lot of resources, and there's a glossary of terms. But the overlay itself, what that allows is if you like, a checklist. It just lays things out in a way, and gives reasoning as to why particular activities are useful at particular points, and then sign off and so forth. So I think it's very helpful as a structure to guide your work, even if you aren't actually using REBA's plan of work.
Yeah.
But you can use the outcomes as an advocacy piece to help. This is what the community said that can help. We've been in a really privileged position because we've had you know, this funding where we've actually going, we want to spend this $1 million in this precinct. How do you want us to spend it? So I guess we've gone already with a promise to do something and that they are part of it. So that's been a really, you know, powerful thing. But in this case, that might be the stage 2. At the moment, we're really wanting to go, how do we support the Purple Flag stakeholders, the working groups, to really understand that more nuanced perceptions within their community? Because when I was on the, I know we've got some of the other team on the call from that accreditation panel, but you know, safety and that more nuanced thing wasn't coming through as critically in the in that self-assessment reports that I believe that that each Purple Flag does. So it's about how do we upskill and build this into the story of what they're measuring to get accreditation.
Brilliant. Thank you.
That sounds great. And then I guess one more question for the group. I'd asked John to ask it himself, but he's had to pop off. So for those that don't know, John Shipp is the former evening and nighttime economy manager for Bournemouth Council in the south of England, and is also the chair of the Purple Flag network here in the UK. And his question is again around how you deal with conflict between different types of stakeholders. And he references something which he says comes up quite regularly now for him, and certainly we've experienced this within ATCM, and that is the disconnect between the need for more lighting as part of the evening and nighttime economy to support perceptions of safety. But on the other hand, the challenge around biodiversity and unnatural light at night can create challenges for wildlife. And there's a growing community of people who are quite against more lighting. So how do we deal with that practical challenge? And it's something we'll be discussing more in our conference, our flagship conference in Glasgow, when we talk about sustainability and the nighttime economy in Purple Flag. But yeah, open question to the group.
I would say first, sorry, I won't jump in all the time, but about lighting, because and there's a whole lot of work in our gender sensitive lighting placemaking guide about lighting, but it's not coming out at all that they want brighter, more lighting. They want more nuanced lighting. In Australia, I don't know what it's like in the UK, but our street lights face the road, so for the cars going through, not the footpaths. The footpaths are in shadow. The roads have, so walking along those footpaths alone, the lighting is misplaced. And, that can be a simple thing. I always talk about, if you're going to have people over for dinner, the first thing you do is turn off your house lights and put on lamps. It's about creating atmosphere and creating, as opposed to being, brighter. Through CCTV cameras, as they got developed and CEPTED kind of principles, it was always about being able to have face recognition. So you needed bright white lights, and that's where this kind of clinical, uninviting sort of light starts to come from. But technology is getting better. Our cameras are getting better. And I think you can have sensitive light sensors that can, move as you come through for that biodiversity. But I think it is an important point.
I agree. And during your presentation, I did note that you said things like nuanced lighting, things like the use of fairy lights rather than the sort of bright clinical lights, which also, because of that contrast, for those areas that don't get that really bright light, it becomes even darker and harder to see, doesn't it? So I think in terms of a design problem, I would definitely advocate that. And Joe, do you want to come in as well? And
I know we don't have too much time, so we've gone over. But I would say that it's designing with and for nature is a critical aspect. So when I was talking about those multifaceted nature of places, of nature is part of that. And indeed, in the parks, Edinburgh Parks project specifically, it obviously nature and biodiversity was a key component, and where for instance the parks were already kind of accredited as nature zones, then that meant they weren't, that they were out, they weren't part of the picture. And sensitive lighting, I agree, is exactly the way that we need to think about this. So nature, the folks who are all for supporting wildlife, supporting biodiversity, I'm with them wholeheartedly, and it's one factor that needs to play in for sure. But there is definitely, we were the other people on the team, if you like, were dealing with that engineering perspective and looking at, and that was Atkins, and they were looking at the different types of lighting solutions that would be appropriate for different typologies of parks. So definitely this work is being done and considered. So both are right. It's a case of both those who are wanting to support safety, perceptions of safety, and those who are wanting to support, and they're not mutually exclusive. Nature are both right, and it's a design, getting the right design solution.
Absolutely. And it sort of brings us back to that multi-functional nature of our streetscape, our towns and our cities. I'm going to leave it there. We're out of time. Can I just thank everybody for a really interesting discussion? That was really great. It's really interesting. Probably a topic I want to move back to at some point. John Green puts in the comments late in the day, really interesting. AI or movement activated lighting is something we should also consider. Really not a bad idea at all, and we know the technology is there to do that. Yeah, John, that's really useful. What I want to do is to probably have another one of these sessions after the summer break we're going to have in the Northern Hemisphere. So I think we'll probably get the chance to have one more session before the clocks turn and it pushes us further away. So we will try and get that done, and we will make sure we speak to the Swedes as well and get a day where they're not on holiday. Unfortunately, they're on holiday today, which is why we don't have the Swedes on the call, but we will share the recording with them. So without further ado, guys, thank you very much, guys in the Northern Hemisphere. I'm going to let you go to work. Guys in the Southern Hemisphere, go get your dinner, go have a drink, and put your feet up. And I hope to catch up with you all. Oh, John, you are on it. I like you, John. I like you. So it's great to speak to you all. Hopefully catch up again soon.